Welcome, sentient beings from all known universes and beyond. It's time to activate your cranial downlinks and prepare to receive a raft of discussion on a cosmic ocean of science fiction and fantasy topics, interviews with local area genre devotees, and insightful prognostication by our soothsayers of science fiction, our forecasters of fantasy, and any other beings that happen to get caught in our gravity well. This is the Galactic Driftwood Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Galactic Driftwood Podcast. I'm Bill.
I'm Linda.
And I'm Chris.
And today we're going to talk about a couple of things, starting with a new video short that's out called Unification. And it was produced by Roddenberry Studios in conjunction with William Shatner and the Leonard Nimoy estate. And it features Captain Kirk and Leonard Nimoy. And they used a lot of physical and digital prosthetics to make it all happen. And we actually saw some behind the scenes footage of that. So they got an actor to play the young William Shatner, who had the, pretty much kind of same facial structure and body build as William Shatner did during the day. And so they put him in a makeup chair and made him up. And when they finished making him up, I mean, he almost looked perfectly like a young William Shatner in the picture I saw. But then when they, so that's one of the scenes from the show. And I know you saw it too, Chris. What do you think of the what do they call that? De-aging process, basically, that they did to get the young William Shatner back in there?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. And it continues to improve from other shows I've seen that have used like a de-aging process. We saw it recently with even I think one of the Star Wars series, like maybe The Mandalorian or something, and they brought Luke back for that. And
right.
And so as we see that it continues to improve, there's always something a little bit off with it that throws me a little bit. You can always kind of tell, but it does continue to improve. And but it still looked pretty good for what it was.
I thought the part that kind of threw me out of it, I think the most, was the TOS version of Shatner. Just didn't look quite right to me. But the movie version, was the I would say it was probably one of the early movies, like maybe The Search for Spock or something version of him. Mm-hmm. And then the last one was obviously the version of him from the movie Generations, which kind of introduced us to the new crew, the Next Generation crew, right? And he kind of handed the baton off to them as far as the movies were concerned. Mm-hmm. And I thought both of those were done really well. I think, we should probably get into talking about what it's about. So there's kind of a montage of images at the beginning, and it kind of starts with one of the first episodes. Yeah, so that's him, and that's pretty good. That's the actor with the digital and physical prosthetics, and I thought it was pretty good. It just didn't look quite right to me. I don't know. The face might be a little too long and not quite as round as I remembered him being in the original series. Maybe that's just me. What'd you think?
I don't know. I think it's pretty close.
I think for this, the goal was to get close.
Yeah.
And because this short film is almost a dreamlike state, so there's going to be things that are just kind of off a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. I could have done with it being a little bit even more off than this. to keep that, because the more you try and get into that realism, the more it kind of detracts from maybe the message of the scene or whatever, because you're too focused and like you are, Bill, when you're looking at it and you're like, well, that's just not quite right. And so for me, I prefer for them to stray almost as far as possible as they can from the exactness, because it helps you focus on kind of where you're going in the scene, as opposed to like something's not quite right about the hair or the jawline or the nose.
I think it's the jawline. Yeah.
Yeah. And I see what you mean, Bill. Like looking at that again, I'm like,
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks okay.
Yeah. So it starts out, and we see this guy, which folks will remember from one of I think the very first episode after the pilot. So the pilots came out and they featured Captain Christopher Pike and Talos 4, but then the series, they reshot a new pilot with William Shatner as the captain, and then this guy, and by God, for the life of me, I can't remember the character.
Gary? No.
Gary, somebody.
I want to say Gary, but
Lieutenant Commander Gary Mitchell.
Gary Mitchell. Yeah.
Gary Mitchell. Okay. Yeah. So in that original reshot, I guess, pilot, you might call it, they ended up going through the barrier there's this supposed barrier at the edge of our universe, right? So they ended up going through it, and when they went through it, some of the crew members were impacted by it, and those were crew members that had a high extrasensory perception quotient. They were called high espers, I guess, and Gary was one of them, and he had probably the highest rating on the ship, along with a woman that was like the doctor on the ship. And so his power ended up growing and growing throughout the episode until by the end of the episode, he was pretty much godlike. But somehow Kirk still managed to kill him.
Or you might say Q-like.
Very Q-like, yes.
Yeah, okay, yep.
I
like that.
True. So anyway, he managed to kill him. But so where Unification starts is we see him in that picture that Linda put up. And it's almost as if he's facilitating bringing Kirk and Spock back together. That in this afterlife, he still has these godlike powers. And so he's making this happen. And so what we see is William Shatner as Captain Kirk from the last movie he was in, where he died on Viridian 3. And we see him suddenly back and walking through a grassy field, and his hands are kind of outstretched, and he's feeling the leaves on the trees and admiring the blossoms and stuff. And then he walks into this large group that's standing there, and we don't know it at the time, but this is the grounds of the Spock estate, the ambassador's estate, and these are the people that are gathered there. They're probably his staff, a lot of them, I would assume, and some are family and friends. And he walks through that, and he stops to greet an aged Vulcan woman who we will recognize as Lieutenant Savick from the Search for Spock episode. And so we see her, and he stops and, acknowledges her, and standing behind her is that gentleman in the black that you see on the screen there, Vulcan male, who is her and Spock's son. Because if you remember, during that Search for Spock episode, the young Spock, he gets regenerated after death, and he's growing, and he goes through Pon farr on the planet. And she helps him through that because it's a horrible thing. And we know from the original series, if something isn't done, they can die from it. So obviously something was done, and she got pregnant. It's more than just the rubbing of fingers, right?
I love it.
And so this is her and Spock's son, which is kind of cool because, it shows that Spock's legacy will live on in some form, which is kind of neat. And so after he acknowledges both of them, everybody kind of turns and looks, and he walks up, and there's a alien there that I think we're only familiar with from Star Trek Picard, or no, maybe.
I didn't recognize it, but I do know it was supposed to be a reference to Discovery.
Yes,
Ah,
right. That's
right.
right. Yeah. Yeah, because I think he was, they had talked about the parallel universe in Discovery, and they showed this guy, I think that was a character that came through from one side or the other, and he was the last one, I think, that successfully transitioned from the other side to our side, or vice versa, or whatever. But anyway, he's standing there, and he ends up handing something to Captain Kirk with both of his hands, which we later find out is the comm badge that he wore in that last episode that was left as a marker of his burial site on Veridian 3. It was kind of left on top of the stone. So he hands it back to him. He puts that on, and then he's kind of in a different space. It's kind of a black corridor, and we see him standing there, and then he looks down and he sees his younger self from the original series. And then all of a sudden he becomes his younger self in the original series, and he's kind of looking around, and in front of him, not too far away, is a version of him from one of the original movies, probably The Search for Spock, I guess, wearing that red uniform. And he looked really good there. I thought that was just spot on. And then we see from that middle-aged Kirk, from his eyes looking backward, he's looking back and he sees his original series self, and then suddenly behind him the elderly version from Generations appears, and then the first two fade away, and we're left with just the older Spock, or the older Kirk. So it's kind of like he's, we see the three versions of him: the young idealistic man, out to save the universe kind of a thing, and then we see the middle-aged Kirk, who's a little bit more tempered, kind of been around the block a bit, and more measured in his approach, but still pretty idealistic. And then we see the elder Kirk, and who looks as he did just seconds after he died on Veridian 3. So then he walks finishes walking through that black hallway, and he ends up in a large room, looks like a bedroom, and we see a figure laying reclined on a bed there. And as he gets closer and sits on the edge of the bed, the camera turns and looks, and we see that it's Ambassador Spock laying on the bed there, and it's his last moments of life. He's about to pass on. And I kind of took that as like, there's a lot of stories out there about, when you're about to die, you suddenly see people from your past, the stories that people from your past show up, and they're there to welcome you or ease your transition into the other side, kind of a thing. And that's what I took this whole thing to be, is that, Kirk came there immediately after death to ease Spock's transition into the afterlife. And so then they both turn and look, and there's this huge, large, I'm guessing it's a screen in his bedroom, but it could be a window. I mean, it looks like they're looking out at this expansive vista, and you see these big mountains in the distance, and the sun is setting, and they kind of look and acknowledge each other, and eventually, Kirk puts Spock's hands down on the bed as he sort of, completely relaxes and passes on. And the last shot is both of them staring into the vista there as the sun has set beneath the mountains. And that's the last shot there. They're both staring at the setting sun. And so now it's taken to mean that they've both passed on into the afterlife and they've been reunited in that way. So I thought it was pretty good. I think, I don't know what you think, Chris, but I thought if they could have done something like that for the actual end of that movie, that it would have been nice. This, I think, would be a great way to close that movie out.
If not even through an extended cut of the film or something.
Right.
But yeah, and so I think
the last part, maybe, or
I think a challenge with this, and maybe why it was kind of I hate to say afterthought, was I had to go in and look to try and find the other deeper meanings, and I don't think they were hidden in here. It was just, Bill, you would know more than probably most, but you really have to know your Star Trek films, maybe even a couple novels to kind of piece it all together. But in my digging for it, it was pretty interesting, even down to some of the symbolic stuff. So, the being in the yellow shirt just before Kirk goes into the dark corridor was known as like some kind of forever guardian or a person who travels between time and dimensions. And so we first see them in Picard, or not Picard, excuse me.
Discovery.
And so, one of the explanations that I saw in reading one of these things was, what he hands Kirk before he goes in the dark corridor is his pin, right?
Yeah.
Kirk's not wearing it prior. Well, the explanation behind that was, when Kirk initially passes away in the Nemesis film, not Nemesis,
Generations.
Nexus film, Generations, he's buried with the pin. The pin's left on top. That's where his pin is left. So the kind of explanation there is that that being, I believe his name was Yor, would have gone to that place, grabbed his pin, and returned it to Kirk. At that moment. But in all those intricacies, I found a pretty good list to kind of help stretch, to give scale to how many different things of Star Trek was put together in here. So I have a list here. I'm going to read it down.
Yeah, I'd love that. That'd be
pretty
great.
wild.
Yeah.
So the original pilot for Star Trek, the second pilot, so The Cage and Where No Man Has Gone Before, the original series in general, Star Trek The Motion Picture, Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan, Star Trek III The Search for Spock, Star Trek IV The Voyage Home, Star Trek Generations, Star Trek Beyond, Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Picard, and at least one Star Trek novel plus 2 different comic book stories that are out there. All of that was contained in that short film.
That kind of
which is where I had to go like digging for it, right? Because some of the references were clear, and it's like, oh well, that's from that. But then this is from over here, and then where did that come from?
Right.
Some of it was kind of a trip down memory lane, which was nice.
Yes.
And others were like, I wish I knew that was kind of out there, for some of the things that were pulled upon. But think how broad that is, and that all of that in one way is compacted into this short film.
Yeah, it was only like 7.5 minutes, I think, for the whole thing. And I did recognize some of that. So I recognized the Gary, what was his name again? Gary
Mitchell.
Yeah.
Right, Gary Mitchell. I recognized him from Where No Man Has Gone Before, that original episode. And then I recognized the woman from the original pilot that was on Talos 4. She had been a crewman and was beamed down as to give Christopher Pike some alternate options to Vera, who was the woman that was crash landed on the planet that they were trying to kind of fix him up with. So I recognized her. I recognized the images of Kirk's skeleton on that digital screen, which came from Star Trek Picard. That was in the Section 31 archive. Because apparently they've retrieved and had his skeleton there. So for whatever reason. Right. And yeah, and then I knew that other guy. I recognized him from Discovery, but I didn't really remember details about, that alien that you mentioned was the time and space guy, could jump time and space or something.
Yeah, so this one, the way it was put down was briefly appeared as a hologram at the beginning of the 9th episode of season 3, Terraformer Part 1, affectionately known as the one where we learn that the Guardian of Forever is really named Carl.
Yeah, okay.
Or was apparently both a time traveler and a dimension hopper.
Okay.
So in that, he traveled forward from 2379 and across from a parallel universe caused by the incursion of a Romulan mining ship. And so that's where he kind of was thrown in there. And so that's how they wedged him in there as, who could go and retrieve Kirk's pin to give it to him in that one moment to carry him forward. So all very, very cool, intricate, delicate details.
Yeah, some pretty deep dive stuff there. Yeah. So it was very cool. For me, it was hit me pretty emotionally to see them two reunited again. And I thought the whole thing was really well done. And I like the fact that both William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy's estate were involved in it, and it was put together by the Roddenberry Archive. So you've got a lot of bona fides there involved with Star Trek since the very beginning. I thought it was very well done. And especially when you consider there's virtually no talking throughout the whole thing. There's a quote that we see on screen at the beginning. And then there's we hear Kirk speaking at the end, a quote from the movie, I think the Genesis movie.
Yeah, when he talks about if death is the key way to like your gateway to life, then something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. I recognize that one. Yep.
Yeah. But other than that, the 7.5 minutes, it's all just visuals and music. And it managed to be enough to bring out the emotion. I was kind of looking on YouTube afterwards and all the people talking about their reaction to it and what emotional reactions they all had to it and how good it was. And so that's good. I'm glad that the community has liked it as well as they have. So
let's talk a little.
My initial reaction was more sombering just because of where you ultimately end up and with Spock there at the end. But like I said, I kept wanting to dig more into it because then it was more intriguing for me to understand the amount of work that went into it. So my appreciation grew beyond depression to your thought, Bill. Like it would have been nice to wrap up the series with something like that.
Yeah.
Film with something like that to end it. Would have been maybe a little bit more wholesome, right? But then again, at the same time, as how many people would have been thrown as well, maybe that, going to see the feature film and then throw that in the end, and maybe they're not Picard fans or Discovery fans or
right.
They're like, I don't understand any of this,
Right.
Yeah, right. Well, and I guess, and to be fair too, at the time they filmed Generations, of course, Spock was still alive, and who knew how much longer he was going to be around or what he might look like at the end, right? So it was nice that we got to see the version of Spock as he looked like the very last time we saw him, which would have been in the Kelvin timeline movies.
Right.
So I thought that was good. You were going to say something, Linda?
I was going to say, talk a little bit about the way they made the actor. What do they call it? Digital prosthetics.
Well, yeah, it's physical and digital prosthetics. So
I think they did a pretty good job.
They basically, fixed his hair so that his hair looked like William Shatner's at different time. We saw him in the makeup chair having that stuff done, and then all the makeup was applied to get him to look, and then basically the computer just went in and did the rest. made the nose right, and that sort of thing. And so it was pretty good. And then of course they found an actor to play Leonard Nimoy as well, and did the same with him. And yeah, it's really amazing what they can do with digital makeup these days, and how they can de-age actors.
Yeah, de-age, that's what they called it.
Yeah. Makes me wonder if 20 years from now we'll be seeing new movies made with original cast members.
Actors.
Yeah, they'll just be actors maybe in the role, and it'll all be digital replacement. So you could have actually a complete recreation of the original series using different actors. So I don't know. It'd be kind of different, but it might be where we're headed. And in fact, one day there may be no actors at all. It might all just be digital. I think that's what the actors' strike was all about, right? To keep that, try to slow that down and prevent that from happening. But the studios would love that. Think of the money they'd save on stuff. More money in their pockets. I don't think it would make for any better a show, though, at all.
I don't think so either. And they can only go so far, because you'll have fans who naturally are just kind of opposed to it as well. So it just depends on, can they keep a fan base going that route or not? And
right,
I think right now, I think Disney skirts the line a little bit, with what they do with Luke and de-aging him a little bit. But when you interject it just to carry through a timeline or a scene, I think that's fine. But to do a whole thing off of something like that gets to be a little
I know, but I think we're seeing baby steps here.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we're seeing baby steps, and it's just going to keep they're going to keep doing more and more of this until we just take it for granted. And you accept it, and you don't even think twice about it. And then it'll be longer scenes and more frequent scenes, and I think it's definitely headed that way. Yeah. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that the actors are still involved, because I think there's a human element there that needs to be in movies and plays. I don't know that I'm comfortable with the idea of a machine algorithm designing all of that and creating stuff. So, but we'll see.
I'm not comfortable with it either. So
yeah. All right, Chris, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you know what this is?
Oh.
I feel like I should. No, I don't. It's not ringing a bell.
Okay. Well, I'm not surprised. I didn't know what it was either until I saw it. But
who saw it? Who got it for you?
Well, I saw it. You saw it. You told me to convince me I needed it. So this is actually a recreation of the first ever robot toy ever produced.
Huh.
And it winds up and it walks, and
his little name is Lilliput.
The arms move, and Lilliput is the robot's name.
Lilliput.
And so we found that, believe it or not, at Universal Studios in the Harry Potter world. We went to both Universal Studios, Islands of Adventure, and what's the other one, Linda? I don't know. They got like three theme parks, and they're opening a fourth.
Just Universal Studios.
Universal Monsters World or something like that is the new one that's going to be opening. But anyway, so we went to both of those, and so each one of them has a Harry Potter world. The islands, not all three, just Islands of Adventure, and I think it's just Universal Studios.
It's just Universal Studios, yeah.
Theme park. And the other one is like Universal Studios, I don't know, Wild Kingdom or something. Anyway, so they both have a Harry Potter world. Now, at Universal Studios, the world that they have is all Diagon Alley. And are you familiar with the Harry Potter movies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they've recreated Diagon Alley there, and it's pretty big, pretty elaborate. They've got Gringotts there. They've got this giant dragon on top of Gringotts, and about every 15 minutes it roars and breathes out fire.
Nice.
which is pretty cool. So you know when it's going to do it, because you start hearing this growling, and then pretty soon everybody stops where they're at in the street and everybody pops out their phones, getting ready to film
It's ready for
fire
it.
blast.
So that's in Universal Studios, Florida. And
Yep.
then Islands of Adventure is the other one, is in a second park within the park. And that's the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Hogsmeade.
So that's got the town of Hogsmeade and Hogwarts Castle.
And then you can take a train, but take the what's it called, the Hogwarts Express between the two.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. So we went to Diagon Alley first, and they also have a really a darker area that you go into, and it really is dark, literally, because you almost can't see where you're going. It's so dark. But it's Nocturne Alley, which is the dark side equivalent of the Wizarding World.
Who's our favorite place?
It was. They had a big shop there that was just filled with oddities and skulls and all kinds of bizarre looking creature remains and artifacts and just lots of stuff.
It's cool.
Which was cool. And then of course a Diagon Alley, they had the usual, as you would expect, a wand shop, Ollivander's wand shop, and they've got costume shops where you can go in and get your robes, and Linda can show them her robe if she can go grab it. So we fell into the trap and got Harry Potter robes. I think you're muted, Chris. You're muted, Chris.
Sorry, I sneezed earlier. Yeah, if you're gonna get your robe, you might as well
show it. Yeah. So the only thing that turned out not so good. So Omaha has, I think after the first of the year or somewhere, they have a Wizards Ball. And so we thought we've gone to that, I think, once before, and we thought we'd go to that with our Harry Potter robes. So we're like, well, what are we going to be? And of course, everybody, the first thing you think about is you want to be Gryffindor, right? The
right.
Harry Potter's thing. There's Linda's wand. Show me your wand. But Linda found an online thing that gives you a personality quiz, and then it sorts you into a proper house.
Okay. Yep.
So Linda's house happens to be Hufflepuff. And there's her wand. Bring it up to the camera so we can see the whole beauty of it. Oh, yeah, beautiful.
Oh, very nice.
Right? And so I did the same one, and mine was like almost a virtual tie between Slytherin and Gryffindor. And so which way do you think I went, Chris?
I think you went Slytherin.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So so I got the Slytherin robe, and we got the little sweaters that go underneath. And so they had the sweaters. They're actually really nice sweaters. They're made in Scotland, and
they're like 90% wool.
Yeah. So anyway, so they got them behind the counter. So you just tell them what you want, and then they bring the sweater out. Well, they brought out the wrong sweater for me. I got a Ravenclaw instead of a Slytherin. Yes. So, and the problem is that costume shop, the light in there was dark. So dim to be kind of mysterious.
Yeah.
That you looked at it and you couldn't tell if it was blue or green. Really.
Oh, yep.
And so as soon as we got back to the hotel and I looked at it, I'm like, what? Ravenclaw? That's ridiculous. So anyway, so I've contacted them. They sent me a return mailing thing. So I just need to stick it in a box, ship it to them, and they'll send me the right one. So that was pretty nice. I thought that might be a battle, and I'd have to pay for all the return shipping on my own. And But no, they picked it all up. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, so we're Slytherin and Hufflepuff. And the funny thing is, while we were there, we went to this was when we were at Disney. So we're at Disneyland and we're in one of the shops. Oh, I know what it was. You won't be surprised. Droid Depot.
Of course.
Of course. Right. We're in Droid Depot. And so I'm going up to pay to build a droid. Surprise. And so there's a woman behind the counter helping me. And I'm wearing what was I wearing? I was wearing a pin.
Your green shirt with this thing on it.
Oh, yeah. A green sweatshirt with the dark mark of the Dark Lord on it on my shirt. And so, she's all in character for Galaxy's Edge, right? And she's like, I don't believe I've seen that symbol before. Is that some off-world, thing she's going on? I said, yes. I said, it's known as the Dark Mark. It's, from a galaxy far, far away from here, And so she kind of smiles and she comes around the counter and she goes, I know. And she pulls up her pant leg and she's wearing Hufflepuff socks. and so I laughed and I said, oh my God, that's hilarious. I said, my wife actually took one of those online quizzes and she's a Hufflepuff. And she said, yeah, she said, my husband and I did that same thing or something similar. And he ended up being a Slytherin. And I go, oh my God, I chose Slytherin, And she goes, well, that's natural. Hufflepuffs and Slytherins seem to be a good combination together.
Oh, so, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, that's pretty funny. So, so you go to Diagon Alley, you see all the stuff there, and there's lots of stuff to see and do, lots of places to eat. And then you can take the Hogwarts Express to the other one. Now, in order to be able to do that, you have to have the park hopper ticket, which allows you to go to any 2 parks in one day. So when you go up to board the Hogwarts Express, you have to, show them your passes and show that you have the park hopper, and then they let you go on. And the train ride is actually cool. It's a faux steam engine, so it belches steam, but it's not a real steam engine. It's actually a big train on a track, but there's this giant rope that's hooked to it, and it kind of goes through a big bunch of pulleys and stuff. And so there's essentially 2 trains and a double track in the middle. So as you're going, the 2 trains split, and then that way they can get maximal amount of people. So one train, as a train leaves the station and gets halfway, the other train's already on its way back. But it's cool when you leave Diagon Alley for Hogwarts. The train, you go through a whole thing where there's the Dementors that try to attack the train, and it's a whole little show that goes on. And then when you go the other way, it's more of a festive thing where you got the 2 twins in their magic shop, and they're riding their balloons and shooting fireworks off and saying, come visit our magic shop in Diagon Alley, kind of a thing. So it's really cool. And you go there, and then of course you can do there's a ride at Hogwarts Castle, and then similar types of shopping at Hogsmeade. They've got, pub there, and they've got candy shops and stuff like that.
Really good beer.
Yeah, Linda really liked the beer. So overall, I would say because we'd been to Disneyland before and we've been to Galaxy's Edge a number of times, I would say that the Harry Potter world was our favorite part of this trip.
And as if that's not enough, in 2025 they're going to open up another theme park inside of Universal called Epic Universe, and that'll have the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, the Ministry of Magic. So there's even going to be cool. Another one.
And there's also going to be a land that's dedicated to Universal Monsters.
Yeah.
Which would be really cool. Yeah. So, so it's amazing. We also went to Kennedy Space Center while we were there. Got to see the Space Shuttle Atlantis, which is on display there, which is kind of cool because that's the one shuttle that we got to see lift off live from Kennedy Space Center several years ago, before they decommissioned it. So that was nice to be able to see that in person, and so it was a good, fun trip. To be honest, I don't know if we'll go back there to Orlando again. Maybe not soon. Maybe after the new Universal land opens, we might go back to see that. But I'll tell you that because they've got so much land there to work with,
huge.
It is so spread out. I mean, you get on one of those sky cars that travels on a cable and takes you around, between different parks. Yeah. I mean, you get on that, you got to transfer once, and you're on it for like 10 to 15 minutes, just riding from one park to another. So, and that's just Disney. And then of course, Universal has 3 theme parks, and you have to take the train from one to the other. Otherwise, you've got a hell of a walk to get between them. So, I don't know. It's kind of a lot. One day we got, our Fitbit watches on, and one day alone, we had over 25,000 steps.
Jeez.
Just walking around. So
that's a bit much. How many days did you spend down there?
We're down there, 8 days total, because we arrived Saturday, and then we flew back out the following Saturday. So we had the first day we spent at Disney Springs, which is kind of cool. We took a little hot air balloon flight there, and they had a lot of concerts going on and tons of shopping. And then the next 2 days were at Universal, and then the third day, Kennedy Space Center, and then the last 2 full days were at Disney. So
this is just Disney. It is huge. So you can see you can't just walk between these parks. You have to take some sort of transportation.
No, you got to take transportation.
I mean,
it's hard to see
it here. And
I haven't been since I was a kid, and it was just Epcot and like 1 or 2 others.
Epcot, Magic Kingdom.
Maybe
that's Magic Kingdom.
Yep.
Used to just be Magic Kingdom and Epcot, because I can remember you could walk between those. It was a long ass walk, but you could make it. Now they've got this Animal Kingdom, Blizzard Beach, Hollywood Studios, and Hollywood Studios. That's where Harry Potter is, right? Not Harry Potter.
No, this is Disney. That's where Galaxy's Edge is.
Galaxy's Edge, that's where that is.
Yeah. So you kind of have to, if you want to see all the traditional Magic Kingdom rides and stuff like the Haunted Mansion and Indiana Jones rides and stuff like that, you need Magic Kingdom. But if you want to do Galaxy's Edge, then you got to have the Hollywood Studios. So you need a park hopper,
which is crap because it's all Disney. It should just be one entrance.
Yeah. Or you need to do one park one day and one park the next day. But so we did our first day at Disney, we just did Magic Kingdom. And then the second day we did the park hopper, and we did Hollywood Studios and Epcot. So we started off at Hollywood Studios, did a little bit of Galaxy's Edge there, went to Olga's Cantina. Then we went to Epcot, spent some time there, and then finished the night off back at Hollywood Studios and stuff. So, it was a lot of walking, no matter which one you went with, and they're only getting bigger. They keep announcing new theme parks, like Universal's new venture they're going into. So anyway, I would encourage, if you haven't been, I would definitely go to the Harry Potter stuff down in Orlando. They do have it in California, but it's just Hogsmeade and Hogwarts Castle. There's only a parked faux train that doesn't move, doesn't have steam, that you can stand in front of and get a picture, because they don't have room for another park to run them between. So if you really want the full Harry Potter immersion thing, if that means a lot to you, definitely go to Florida. Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, I don't know. That's about all I got. Anybody got anything else?
No, that was a lot, and it's awesome to hear that the experience was good. So Gina and I are still going to figure out like when and does she still want to do like a Hogwarts thing or whatever. I think it'd be pretty cool. Like I said, I don't think she's ever been down there, period, any of that. And I have, but I haven't since I was a kid. So I only remember the OG stuff that used to be there. I haven't seen any of the cool new stuff that's built out. So like Galaxy's Edge, I really want to check out as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We need like a full 2 weeks or something. So
yeah, and the Galaxy's Edge is the same at both California and Disney. They're almost identical. So it doesn't matter which one you go to there, but the Harry Potter stuff, definitely a difference. So if you're going to do that, I would recommend that you two start spending your lunch hours taking long walks to build up your leg muscles.
Right? No kidding.
Yeah, there were days when we had over 25,000 steps.
Yeah, I told him. Yeah.
Wear walking shoes. Be prepared, right?
Yeah, I wore my most comfy tennis shoes, and that's where I think that's why I was when I was thinking about it. If we stretch it out to 2 weeks, we don't have to feel compelled to get through. Like we can kind of take more of our time. So even if we only get through like half a day, and it's like, all right, let's spread it out. We've got tomorrow. Yeah, but on the other note, Chris, think about the prices of those tickets.
Oh my gosh, right?
Every day you buy a ticket, it's like what, $200 per person?
Yeah.
Something like that. I can't remember exactly.
But
so
the additional things that you add if you want to do rides or
listen, you buy the ticket for $200, and then I would recommend buying one of the Disney Magic Bands. So that's a digital thing you put on your wrist, and it syncs with your phone, and it stores all your tickets and stuff. So when you want to go on a ride, all you have to do is walk and put your wrist against the thing, and it goes chimes, and you just go right in.
Oh, nice.
Instead of trying to dig out your ticket from your wallet or your pocket, or it gets lost.
Or your phone.
So you definitely want to do that. But then the other thing is you really need to do the express lane ticket. Add-on.
It's worth the money.
Because otherwise you spend an hour to 2 hours in line waiting to get on a specific ride. And, walking, I can stand the walking. It's the standing for hours.
You're not moving.
That just wears you out. Then if you get the rapid thing, you just walk on, and then you've got maybe a 5 to 10 minute wait to get on the ride or less. So that was definitely worth it. So just little stuff like that. And then of course, if you want to do, one of the things I'd recommend at Epcot is they have a space station dinner thing. It's called, Space 220, I think. And it's like, you go in, and you have to book it ahead of time because it sells out. But it's a prepaid 3-course meal.
Okay.
And so you go in, and it's like you're going into a spaceport terminal, except it's for one of those space elevators.
Okay.
And so when it's your time to go for your reservation, you get on the space elevator, and then it's really cool because you have a view below and a view up above, and you can see the elevator lifting off from the ground and taking you higher up into space. And you see, Orlando and the state of Florida, and then pretty soon you're up in the space station, and you get up there, and it's just like the picture that Linda put up. You're sitting up there, and you can either sit by the window or further back. We sat further back, which is actually better because then you get a panorama view of the Earth underneath the space station. And there's astronauts that float by and spacecraft that fly by while you're dining. And the meal is very space oriented, but it was beautiful. We had filet, and
it was good. That was actually very good.
Yeah, it was a fantastic meal, but you got to book it really ahead of time. But it's an experience you should do if you go to Epcot. So
very cool.
Yeah. Well, all right then. I think we've chewed everybody's ears off long enough. We'll let people get back to their holiday cyber shopping.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed our discussion today of Unification. That 7.5 minutes short is out on YouTube. Just look for Star Trek Unification, and you should be able to come across it pretty easy. It's free. Check it out. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. Also, if you've been to Orlando and Harry Potter and you liked it, or thought you hated it, let us know that too. See what people think. Chris is looking for tips for when he goes. So
yes.
All right. Take care. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Later.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Galactic Driftwood Podcast. For more information and past episodes, please visit our website at galacticdriftwood.space or subscribe to us on YouTube. And now, please deactivate your cranial downlinks, collect your towels, and be sure to watch your step as you exit our gravity well.